Welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about the ball release and why that matters. The ball release, how we let go of that ball, is important. It matters. It impacts our consistency of our serve going across that net. I used a T-ball reference a couple times in the past where little kids playing baseball, they have the ball up on the tee and they're hitting this ball. They don't have a pitcher. Why? Because that ball's always in a constant location, and we want to mimic that in pickleball as much as we can. So the more consistent I can have this ball in that same location, more consistent location every time, the better my serve is going to be going across that net. If I wanted to mimic that T-ball analogy, and I do, then how would I do that? So I always want this ball in this almost exact same location as I can get it every time I hit this serve. That's more consistent for my serve going across that net. Simplest thing I can do, simple is better. I'm going to hold this straight arm down by my knee, and now my reference point may be a little bit different than yours as far as how forward or how backwards. I talked about that in the previous video. All the way down here, I'm simply going to let it go. That's as simple as I can do this. I'm not going to toss it up. I'm not going to drop it. I'm just going to hold it down here, let it go. The same time I let it go, my paddle starts coming forward. I'm using my front knee as a reference point. So if I turn sideways here, closer I have this ball to my knee when I let it go, the more accurate my location is going to be. Further out here I'm holding this ball when I let it go, the less accurate. I can't always reach this far out and have the ball in the same spot. I want this ball in here. This forces me to have this vertical paddle as I hit this ball. So the release matters. As simple as I can make it and as consistent as I can make it, the better my serve is going to be going across that net. Ideally then, as I release this ball, I'm just letting it go. It's always in the same location. Now that's a little bit difficult to do. If you watched my slow motion demo that I had a few videos back, and I actually even pointed this out in the video myself, is that as I release this ball, I tend to come up because I'm hitting relatively hard. So a couple things around that about why I do that. One is I swing really hard, and I've developed this over the course of a couple of years. What I started off doing though is I want to exaggerate having this ball low. And we talked about having this ball low because that's where the sweet spot of my paddle is. So that ball needs to be all the way down there. So as I start my service motion, I tend to have this ball lower than really where I'm going to hit it, because I don't want to have the opposite true, which is where it's higher than I want to hit it. I want to actually be in a more athletic stance, be a little bit lower, have this ball down here. Now as I start to swing and I'm releasing this ball, what happens is I'm pulling up on this ball a little bit. I don't really recommend you do that, but that's just how mine is. Mine's not perfect. I'm trying to do what I profess. But that's a little quirk that I have that I'm not really motivated to get rid of because my serve is working really well. The end result though is, I also mentioned in that video when I was doing the slow motion, that if you look closely, as I started this motion and I came up and I let this ball go, that ball was almost stationary in space. It was almost suspended as my paddle was moving forward to get to that ball and hit it. So yes, I lift that ball as I do this because one is I want to start with this ball low enough, or maybe lower than I really need it to be. So I'm reaching down here, and then as I'm swinging and I'm pulling the shoulder away and starting my shoulder rotation, I tend to lift and just simply let go. So it should have looked like I didn't toss the ball or do anything else with it. I just simply released the ball and let it go. And then it was kind of suspended there in space a little bit as my paddle was still coming forward. So the end result that I get out of that is kind of the same as the ball's not moving. It's in a pretty predictable location every time as I hit this ball. I have this little weird quirk where I'm starting a little bit lower than I need to and pulling up a little bit and then releasing and then hitting the ball with my paddle. My recommendation, as always, is go practice. Try and have this ball down here, straight arm. We talked about the shoulders not being parallel to the floor, but this front shoulder is dropped. Simply let that ball go. Get that paddle going at the same time you release that ball. Get that paddle there quickly. That ball's not going to move very much. So from here to here is a pretty quick action. Go practice that. Now how you hold the ball and how you release it, it probably doesn't matter very much. I tend to hold mine kind of sideways like this and just get my fingers out of the way and let it go. I have some people who hold it with their hand on top of the ball and simply let it go, as long as you're not moving the ball much when you release it. So I would have a bigger risk of, if I'm holding the ball like this and letting it go, having it go laterally some. I don't think I really do that much. But however you hold it, simply let it go. Try not to move it as any at all if you can. That ball will be in a more consistent location. That serve will then be more consistent going across that net.